Hey YouTube, and welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to continue on with the frequently asked questions series. I am Nurse Nelle. You can follow me on Instagram at I am Nurse Nelle, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel. I have reached 1,000 subscribers and I am just overwhelmed by the love and support from you all, and I totally appreciate it, literally from the bottom of my heart, because you all keep me going and I cannot do any of this without you. So as you guys know, on Instagram I asked you to send me your questions about CRNA School, personal questions, anything, your burning questions and desires that you would like to know about me. And we're going to do part 2, and we're going to start with CRNA School. We're going to start with pre-CRNA School, experience and stats. Here we go.
Asking all them questions, why you asking all them questions, making statements, asking all them questions, why you asking all them questions, making statements,
As a nursing student, what steps can I take to give myself a better chance of getting a position as a new grad? P.S. I recently found your Instagram and love it. So informational. Oh, you're welcome. So the best thing that you can do, one of the best things that you can do, is get yourself a position in that ICU or that step-down unit as a nurse assistant, student nurse intern, internship, whatever they call it at your hospital. Get your foot in the door, because that's going to make it so much easier for you to just breeze right in as a student nurse and then start on that unit as a registered nurse. If they allow you to do critical care clinical rotation, which I did, make sure your grades are good enough to be eligible for those clinical rotations. So if you can get yourself a critical care rotation, that's also going to help you get your foot in the door. Ask about positions if they are available, get the manager's number, give them your resume, let them know you are interested, and do the best that you can during your rotation. Get your name and your face in there so that when your application pops up in the system, they're going to remember you. They're going to say, oh, wow, she was a great student here for her clinical rotation. Her grades are great. She was involved in school. I think that she would be a great fit for us as a new graduate, someone who was fresh out and ready to just learn and become a great nurse. Are peds ICU nurses considered competitive applicants? What makes someone a competitive applicant is much more than just their experience. You can have 10 years of basic ICU experience and have a bad GPA, great essay, mediocre interview, but you might not be considered a competitive applicant. It's what you get out of your peds ICU experience that's going to make you that competitive applicant, and what your essay looks like, what those recommendations look like, what your GPA looks like, how you interview. Those things all come together to formulate who you are as an applicant. So it's not just one thing that's going to make you a competitive applicant. It's all those things involved, including your GRE, CCRN, other certifications, other involvement in community and things like that. So when you think about what you want to do, you just want to make sure in terms of ICU experience that you are getting into the ICU that is going to give you the most critical patients. Those patients might be pediatric patients. Those patients might be adult patients. I would caution you to stay away from NICU, only because there are schools that do not take that experience. It's a little bit harder, but there are phenomenal CRNAs that have PICU experience. What were the type of grades you earned while getting your undergraduate degree? Well, I started off doing pharmacy. It was okay, but I didn't really have a passion for it. I started off getting A's and B's, and then I think I got a C, and then I'm like, okay, this sucks. I don't want to do this anymore, because it's something that I knew that just wasn't right for me. I can't remember what my C was in. I think I got a C in like pharmacology, because I just didn't go to class because I didn't want to go. It wasn't that the class was, too challenging for me. I just didn't care. So once I changed my major to nursing, went to St. John Fisher College in Rochester, I got all A's and B's. Did not even get a C there because it was something I was passionate for. I wanted to learn. I went to class. I got an A in pharmacology, so my grades were decent. My overall GPA was a 3.8. Did you participate in any extracurriculars that you thought may have helped you get into anesthesia school? Absolutely. I saw that there was a need at my school to have a more involved Student Nurses Association. We weren't doing a lot to really support and help the students. So I became the president of my class of the Student Nurses Association, and I, along with my e-board members and faculty, did a lot of different activities for the students so that they felt involved, they felt that support. And then I also, along with the help of my e-board, developed a whole graduation ceremony for the December graduates, which I was, because we didn't have one for our class. I did that, and I think there was a lot of things that came out of that in terms of communication skills, working with different people, dealing with stress, dealing with differing opinions. All those things have helped me in anesthesia school. And those things I was able to bring up during my interview when they asked me about my leadership abilities and dealing with stress and dealing with, other issues. Next question. Any volunteer work in the community? I actually did my senior preceptorship in Peru, up in the mountains of Ollantaytambo, Peru, and did a lot of community work there. Locally, not so much. I did a couple of things with my local church congregation, but other than that, I wasn't formally involved in any major community outreach things in the Buffalo area. How many recommendations did you get when you applied to nurse anesthesia school? Was it from people from Fisher or people from work? I got 3 recommendations, but I think I submitted 4. I got a recommendation from my current nurse manager, and I think that it was required of me to get one from my manager. So I got one from my manager. I also got one from a CRNA that I shadowed from a shadow day. I also got a recommendation from one of my professors, and then I got a recommendation from my assistant dean of my nursing school because I was the president and I was very close with her. It was the best choice for me to choose her to be able to talk about my skills and abilities. What did you score on your GRE? I scored a 306 on my GRE. I got a 149 on my verbal, a 152 on my quantitative, and then a 4.5 on the writing section. They prefer that you have greater than 150 in the verbal and the quantitative. So it was actually brought up on my interview like, oh, that score is a little low by like 1 point. But then I had my GPA to back that up, so it was okay. Money, 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 money. All right, let's talk about money and financing CRNA school. This is another frequently asked question. This person asked me, did you save a ton for CRNA school? Currently working all the overtime that I can. You are so smart for doing that. I worked a lot, but I also used that money that I made to pay off a lot of debts that I had because I became a nurse. 3 weeks later, I bought a car, a $20,000 car. Was it the best decision? No, it was not, because there was nothing wrong with the car that I had. I'm like, oh, I got all this money now, I might as well get a new whip. So I did, not thinking about my future and going to CRNA school. So the overtime that I used in the travel nursing that I did prior to starting CRNA school, that money went towards paying off my car very quickly, paying off any credit cards that I had from college, and paying off, I think that was it, just paying off my credit cards, paying off my car, and any personal, I think I had a personal loan, and I paid that off as well. If you can save up for school, please do it. I currently take out loans that's covering my school tuition, and is also giving me a refund check that I utilize for my living expenses. How did you know you were ready to apply to CRNA school? In terms of being ready for CRNA school, as a travel nurse, I worked at a smaller hospital in Buffalo, and I got the sickest assignments when I worked. I got the ECMO patients, and that's kind of how I knew, because I was able to handle those things in a small hospital. Super sick patients that we ended up transferring to my old hospital that I worked at, and being able to manage those patients, I knew that I was ready clinically wise. So let's talk about the application. This person asked me, I'm gearing up to apply this month. What are important details a CRNA panel likes to see in the admission essay, your application, besides the requirements like PALS, ACLS, CCRN, and GREs? They want to see who you are as a person. They don't want to see someone who is unable to show their personality, unable to show their desire, unable to show their passion for the field of anesthesia. So they want to see that you have a general handle on the profession itself, because people can apply to CRNA school because that's their dream job. They might shadow 1 or 2 times, or might not even shadowed at all, and then they get into it and they're like, okay, this is not what I expected. They want to see that you are attentive and have a basic understanding of what's going on politically with the profession and how that's going to impact your future. You want to show yourself and show that you know what you're getting yourself into. All right, let's talk about CRNA school life. How do you manage working and going to CRNA school? I'm currently working per diem in a CICU, so I'm thinking this will benefit me in the long haul when I go to school. In terms of working while I am in CRNA school, I am in a mixed front-loaded integrated program where I don't start clinical until my 2nd year of school. Therefore, I had a significant amount of time to pick up some shifts in the hospital, but as I started clinical, I stopped working in the hospital per diem as a travel nurse, and I continued on working for a pharmaceutical company, going to patients' homes, making my own schedule, and teaching them how to use an injectable medication for multiple sclerosis. So if you have a flexible schedule, it can work. If you are attending a school that allows you to work and doesn't make you sign a contract, which some do, then that's also a feasible option. If you don't have to work, don't do it. I work because I know that I can handle it. I don't have any other responsibilities. And I also make my schedule as flexible. It's not going to interfere with anything that I have to do for school. How hard is the material that you are learning? Do you feel like the material is hard, or is it the actual amount that you have to learn is a difficult part? The material is hard. You have never seen this stuff before. You have never learned these concepts before in terms of the anesthesia part. That's why you need to have a good foundational basis of critical care knowledge, because it's going to help you when you get to these anesthesia courses. But we had a course where we learned about physics, electricity, organic chemistry, and I'm just like, what is this stuff? So the material is hard. In addition to that, it is a lot of material all at once. You're going to have a ton of chapters to read. So I think it's both. The material is hard. It's a different way of learning, because you're not just learning things to memorize it and then regurgitate it. You're learning things so that you understand how it works, and you're going on a deeper level, not just molecularly, but you're just understanding things on a level that you thought you would never really need to know, but you do. It's hard, but it's doable. One of my biggest fears concerning CRNA school is a capstone and a research project. How difficult How difficult is it? I just hate writing papers. Also, do you find it difficult to remember the information, and do the instructors expect you to remember every single thing? I love writing papers, so it's really hard for me to answer this question. And you will write a lot of papers throughout CRNA school, especially if you're doing a DMP program, which requires you, I think all of them do, to do a DMP capstone project. Master's programs, you're not going to have to do that. So that's something to consider when you are looking at schools right now, because that's going to be changing soon. But you're going to be writing papers. There's no way around it. To answer the next part of your question, I don't think that it's difficult per se to learn the information. It's kind of depending how you view what's difficult or not. It might take time for me to understand a concept. I might learn it once and I don't fully understand it until I see it in practice, or I read it in a different book or online or watch a YouTube video. So in terms of that, it kind of varies depending on what you're learning. They don't expect you to know every single little thing, but they expect you to know a decent amount, especially some of your preceptors are going to ask you detailed questions about some things you might not know the answer to. So it's always good to learn as much as you can and try to retain as much of that information. And when I say retain that information, I don't say memorize it, but review that information, consistently, so that you know and are able to have a conversation about that information. Sometimes people forget that you can learn this stuff, but learning it and then taking a test on it, like a written test or a multiple choice test, is different from somebody asking you a direct question in the operating room while you're intubating a patient. You have to be able to communicate what you have learned to someone else. So it's really good to always talk these things out. A lot of schools incorporate oral boards in their curriculum so that you are prepared for those experiences. So those are all the questions that I have gotten so far. I will definitely be making another one of these videos in the near future. So I thank you guys for watching. Please feel free to share these videos. Don't forget to subscribe and follow me on Instagram at IamNurseNell. Thanks for watching.